Okay, so with the back panel removed from the organ, we can straight away see you've got two rather industrial sized speakers. That very big circuit board that we looked at earlier from the other side, the swell pedal. There's a pretty basic power supply, just a transformer, a bridge rectifier on a small heatsink and one capacitor for smoothing, and that's wired via a fuse to the main socket, and then there are some wires that go up from there to the main switch at the front of the machine. The swell pedal is interesting. It's got quite a large potentiometer on this. The scale of it to my hand, you can see it's probably, I don't know, I guess maybe 40 millimeters across or more, and that's geared down through, well, not geared down, but operated through these levers for when you press the swell pedal up and down. The reason the thing is so big is that it doesn't directly control the gain of the amplifier. It would need to have screened cable and such, and it would probably pick up noise anyway. So what this actually does, believe it or not, is if we move this circuit board out of the way, there are two clips which turn around, and then the whole thing hinges out, very nicely made. Behind it we've got a couple of amplifiers, one for each speaker, but there's this little thing here, which is a small block of wood, and basically what it is, the wires from the swell control come up to here, and inside is a small light bulb, a 12 volt light bulb, and it works very much like the tremulant that we saw earlier. So by operating the swell pedal, makes the light bulb lighter and darker, and on both sides inserted into this piece of wood are light dependent resistors, and there are two of them, one for the left hand amplifier and one for the right hand amplifier, and that's how the volume control works. There's a small reverb unit. It's actually quite small compared to the usual ones. It's only about 8 inches long, yeah, about a hand's length I suppose. The ones I've seen before are usually bigger than that. Then we've got, as I say, these two big speakers. They must be probably about 12-14 inch speakers. And then we come back up to our circuit boards that we can see more closely now that we saw in the top. So these are the fellows that live behind the stop switches, and there are a number of these circuit boards running along the top. These are actually the oscillators that give us the various notes, and by operating the stops, it obviously alters the waveform shape to give us the various sounds. Now the various notes are made from this circuit board here. They're basically voltage controlled oscillators, VCOs, and every time you press a key you bring into play a different one of these boards, and I don't know how well we can see these, but they're all about 8 inches long. There's resistor networks, and there are a bunch of wires that go off up to the amplifiers, and there are also these wiring looms come from the keyboards. So there's one for the upper keyboard, one for the lower keyboard, and then down here is another set which is for the pedals. And then there's a little bit of logic along there. They're TTL logic chips, and a few other bits and bobs. I'm not quite sure what these are about here. Most likely some power supply refinement or something like that. So none of this is required. So this lovely big circuit board will become history very, very shortly. The two amplifiers are noisy, so I'll probably ditch them. We can find something better. We'll keep the speakers. Don't know about the reverb unit, might leave it in there, but probably not connect it for the time being. The swell pedal I'll definitely keep, although I'll change the way it works. We're only talking about 5 volts with an A to D converter, so 5 volts across that thing's probably going to be absolutely fine, so I'll do away with the light bulb arrangement. The power supply will probably go. It's 2 times 40 volt secondaries, by the way, giving this thing plus or minus 30 volts that it works on after it's smoothed and regulated. All the stop switches we will keep, but the circuit boards we will get rid of. We don't need those anymore. and obviously all of the keyboard switches we will keep. Regarding the wiring from the keyboards, that's these looms here. It needs to be wired differently. We don't need the one common bus and the 61 individual notes, so we're going to change how that works. But what I'll probably do is cut all the wires off of this end and then undo the lacing, and that way we can probably recycle some of those wires, some of that cabling, and it just saves a little bit of work. So the next job is to remove all the insides of the organ except for the bits previously mentioned, and then we're ready to start looking at how we're going to wire it up and how we're going to use our encoder.